Well, we just heard the story of the miracle of the feeding of 5,000, which appears in all four Gospels. And as the name suggests, let us understand the miracle in the story to be making a small amount of bread and fish into so much food it feeds 5,000 with an abundance of leftovers. That supernatural miracle is in the story, and we will consider it, but there's another miracle to consider as well. Perhaps it is all more profound because it has no supernatural quality to it other than being an integral part of Jesus' ministry and way. It's a miracle every community of Jesus can do and should do. Before I get to that second miracle, let's consider the first, the one on everyone's mind when we hear that Jesus fed 5,000 with a small bit of food. Just what a child, a boy, could carry. John 6 starts with Jesus' disciples not knowing about the boy's cache of food. They wonder how in the heck they will do as Jesus suggested, get food to feed the gathered crowd of 5,000 people. And if we only look at the lesson without context, that seems fair enough question. In ordinary circumstances, the follower of Jesus would seem to have a right to be concerned about Jesus' extraordinary suggestion that they buy thousands of people food. As we heard, when Jesus looked up and saw a large crowd coming toward him, Jesus said to Philip, "Where are we to buy bread for these people to eat?" And he said this to test them, for he himself knew what he was going to do. And Philip answered him, 6 months' wages could not buy enough bread for each of them to get a little. And standing alone, Philip's concerns seem to be on the mark. But they are not meant to be in the context of the Gospel of John. For the previous 5 chapters, Jesus has been doing extraordinary miracles, like turning water into wine, reading a woman's mind, healing a royal child, healing an elder father. The Gospel of John evidences that when there's a need, Jesus can and will provide. That is the core message the disciples should have known by this time. John wants us to know that regardless of how things are expected to ordinarily play out with Jesus, they play out in extraordinary fashion. And so there's a thick-headedness to the disciples thinking that ordinary impediments, like the lack of money, are an issue. It's our thick-headedness too, because we also doubt. All of us live in a world where we're conditioned to have a thick-headedness about our perceptions of reality, asking us to feed an unplanned gathering of 5,000 people is still bound to have us as concerned as Philip about the logistics and practicalities of pulling it off. Jesus tests the disciples by asking, where are we going to buy bread for these people? He wants the disciples to think critically. Philip's concerns fail in that regard. But not all of the disciples fail the test. At least Andrew seems to have an inkling that Jesus can do something. Andrew does not question how to feed the crowd. Instead, he tells Jesus what is available to pull off what Jesus asks. Andrew thinks there's a boy here who has 5 barley loaves and 2 fish, but what are they among so many people? And on one hand, we can hear Jesus' request as questionable. We are with Andrew when he suggests that the loaves and the fish in hand are not enough. That's critical thinking at work. On the other hand, Andrew's listing the available resources suggests and proves to be the seed of the answer to the problem. How the disciples use critical thinking by applying what they know about Jesus. They should have concluded he'd provide with what was at hand. Because in the previous chapters of John, Jesus takes the kernel of ordinary help that there is and he works to extraordinarily solve the problems. The catalyst for miracles of Jesus is Christ's presence and what is available. As we heard in the last and learned that there was some food, Jesus said, "Make the people sit down." And now there was a great deal of grass in the place, and so they sat down, about 5,000 in all. And then Jesus took the loaves, and when he had given thanks, he distributed them to those who were seated. So also the fish, as much as they wanted. That's a pretty cool miracle. Everybody wanting food got it. Everyone wanting to be at the table, such as it was welcome. Reverend Barbara Brown Taylor observes in one of her books of sermons called Mixed Blessing that there are three basic interpretations to this story. I'm paraphrasing. One interpretation is to hear the story as historic. That is, that Jesus literally multiplied a paltry bit of food into miraculous, overflowing abundance. Another interpretation is symbolic. Something like everyone took a pinch and had a symbolic meal, like what we do at communion. A third way is to understand the story is about causation. The boy's willingness to bring out his food to share with Jesus' blessing caused others to bring out food stashes and share all that got fed, like what we do in modern day potlucks. Reverend Brown Taylor's sermon called Local Miracles is brilliant, and I don't do it justice in that sermon. And after describing the three options, the great Episcopal priest then details a humble mission she was on where untrained but dedicated youth and their church leaders offered what help they had. And the results were miraculous, not a supernatural miracle, but one where what humans had was offered, and Christ made it work. Her take is Jesus' famous feeding miracle could be heard to be about God matching the gifts we bring to Jesus so that the things God calls us to do get done. And I love that. It's truth. Reverend Brown Taylor's interpretation understands the story as metaphor for giving what we have and letting God use it and add to it and accomplish what God calls us to. I understand this interpretation to be the third way of understanding the story that she points out. One of causation comes about when we offer what we have for the needs at hand. The boy offers his food, and then the incarnation of God, Christ, uses it and adds to it to solve the need that Jesus had lifted up, making a meal for those who chose to be at his table. Whether it be a table indoors or a table in the heaven, or whether it be at a table set for physical or for spiritual nourishment. Reverend Brown Taylor's sermon did not expressly address the other miracle I mentioned. It's another miracle that we can do. The miracle left out as I prepared this sermon on medical leave in the context of national happenings of exclusiveness in the news, coupled with our church's relentless efforts to be an inclusive community of God where everyone is welcome just as God made them. In today's meal story, as well as in other meal stories about Jesus, he knocks down hers to who may have the food or who may be at the table. Jesus' meals, Jesus' table, like God's love, always has no strings attached. Jesus never, ever denied those outcast and oppressed in the culture access to food, like a conservative cake maker did in Colorado to an LGBTQ couple. Jesus never, ever asked elite politicians to leave his table like a liberal restaurant owner did in Virginia to a White House employee and her family. Jesus denied no one what he had to offer. Jesus denied no one a place at the table. Jesus let anyone who chose to come to him, come to him. Jesus offered nourishment to any and all. Jesus offered community to any and all. And there were and there are no strings attached to the God of Jesus' love. And God of love that Jesus steered his path toward is that God. The nourishment at grassy table in our reading was just like that. All were asked to sit at the makeshift table of grass where all were fed and welcomed. All, not some, all. No one It's excluded. That's the oft overlooked miracle in the feeding of the 5,000. And we can do this miracle too. And unconditional welcome and nourishment is relevant today. It's as relevant as it was in the first century. Last month, social media was abuzz, asking if Jesus were a commercial cake maker or a restaurateur, would he deny gays or politicians access to what he offered? And while Jesus' meal ministry was not related to selling cakes or serving restaurant food, we can look to his meal ministry to figure out if Jesus would deny anyone food or a place at the table. And actually, Jesus' meal ministry took place at a time with widespread popular banquet meal practices that excluded those that the banquet giver had no use for, cultural outcasts and opponents. And consequently, had there actually been first century anti-gay banquet providers, they could have excluded an LGBT couple from their banquet. Similarly, if there was a politician or other person of equal or lesser rank that a banquet provider did not like, they could choose to not invite them. Simply put, in Jesus' time and place, if you meant something to the culture, you were invited to banquets. If you meant nothing, you were not invited. See, exclusion was woven into the fabric of banquets, even as it was woven into the culture back then. Jesus' meal ministry was cleverly and clearly designed to rip down the ugly, woven fabric of exclusion and rejection. Jesus is remembered time and time again throughout the Gospels for inclusive meal practices. It is a big deal. One that we strive toward and the culture wrestles with still today. Jesus' movement catered, pun intended, to cultural outcasts and enemies by bringing everyone to banquets that throughout the culture were otherwise exclusive. Or, as he does in our story today, Jesus also brought the banquets to everyone. This was not about outcasts excluding elites, because Jesus made it cut the other way too. Elites were not excluded. No one was. No one was. Jesus knocked down all manner of cultural barriers to his meal. If you wanted in, you were invited and you were welcome. But we also know that Jesus' ministry resisted oppression, especially in the presence of elites. That's why he got into trouble. You may recall a meal story that illustrates this. Jesus is invited to a banquet, and a sinful woman hears he's there. She shows up weeping, bathes his feet with her tears, and then anoints his feet with oil. Luke tells us the elite banquet provider who invited Jesus said to himself, if this man were a prophet, he would have known who and what kind of woman this is who's touching him, that she's a sinner. Jesus responded by pointing out how the outcast woman was more gracious than he, the elite host. Jesus said, do you see this woman? I entered your house and you gave me no water for my feet, but she has bathed my feet with her tears and dried them with her hair. You gave me no kiss, but from the time I came in, she has not stopped kissing my feet. You did not anoint my head with oil, but she has anointed my feet. Upsetting the elite further, Jesus goes on to pronounce the woman's sins forgiven and her faith saved her, and he honors her by telling her to go in peace. At meals, Jesus defends the oppressed. He lets everyone in and treats them equally. You can hear this happen in the lesson where 5,000 people are gathered by the lake, and not one of them has to meet a standard for being fed or being there or sitting at that grassy table. In Jesus' day and age, that was counterculture. In our day and age, that's still counterculture. Two miracles in our reading. Jesus takes very modest food offerings from a child, and he nourishes 5,000 people. We can hear that miracle as supernatural or as symbolic or as metaphoric. But there's only one way to hear the part where Jesus invited all to sit at his table and be fed. That miracle came about because all mattered to Jesus. Red, yellow, black, and white outcasts and elite LGBT and political opponents are precious in Jesus' sight. If we make everyone precious in our sight, if we make everyone precious in our sight, we can do that miracle too. And we continue to strive to do just